Good day everyone. Me and my group will discuss about the historical and legal foundation. This video will provide us the overview about special and inclusive education, which is underlying basis tailored to meet the needs of students with disabilities. In this presentation, we focus on historical and legal foundation aspect because we are still in Module 1, which is the introductory part of the course that introduces the pioneers, personalities, establishments, and the laws that cover it. By having early on a perspective and ideas related to this lesson its current state, we, the student teacher, can gain, understand, and appreciate on special and inclusive education. So the objective for this lesson is to first to acquire knowledge about the different philosophies and legal bases. Second, to know the definition of student with special needs and inclusive education. Third, is to know the laws of special and inclusive education. And lastly, to know the timeline of special education. To discuss the topic, this will start with Miss Antoni. She discussed about the information in child with special needs, followed by Miss Incomio that discuss about the inclusive education, followed by Miss Mulato. She will discuss about the laws and regulation relative to special education, followed by Mr. Leames that will discuss the timeline of special education in the Philippines. And lastly, Ms. Aranja will discuss about the conclusion for this topic.
Before we proceed to the other topics, let's understand first what is student with special needs, what qualifies as a special needs, and what are the common types of people with special needs. So what is special needs? In clinical diagnostic and functional development, special needs or additional needs refers to individuals who require assistance for disabilities that may be medical, mental, or psychological. The following categories are not the only way to categorize special needs, but rather represent how individuals may experience disability, namely physical, developmental, behavioral or emotional, and lastly, sensory impaired. Physical special needs. A person who is born with a physical special need may have an innate ability to adapt to the world around them, whereas someone thrust into or who gradually develops a physical special need may have a tougher time establishing their new normal. Here are several common types of physical special needs and a few details about each. First, allergies and asthma. Allergies are common and often come from environmental factors like pollen count or food sensitivities. Asthma is a condition where the airways become inflamed, swelling, constricting, and producing excess mucus, making breathing difficult. Next is the juvenile and chronic arthritis. This condition is much more unbearable during periods of time known as flare-ups, where the patient experiences a great deal of joint inflammation and pain, accompanied by a loss of strength, endurance, and stamina. Cerebral palsy, or CP, is a permanent disorder resulting from brain injuries that occur during fetal development, birth, or shortly thereafter. And the last one is the epilepsy. Those with epilepsy have a tendency to have recurring seizures. Seizures are caused by a sudden burst of electrical brain activity and thus cause a temporary disruption in the messages passing between brain cells. Moving on to developmental special needs. Developmental disabilities begin during a child's development, impact functioning, and can last throughout life. Here are several common types of developmental special needs and a few details about each. First, Down syndrome. This genetic condition is caused by the presence of an extra chromosomes in a person's DNA and occurs by chance at conception. Children with Down syndrome will experience delays in mobility and educational development. The next one is the autism spectrum disorder. Verbal and nonverbal communication can be affected by autism, which is typically evident before age 3 educational performance and social interaction. The next category of special need is the behavioral or emotional special needs. Behavioral disorders affect a person's ability to interact with their environment and follow expected social norms. The common types of behavioral or emotional special needs is the attention deficit or hyperactivity disorder. About 5% of school age children are affected by this challenging disorder as ADHD can adversely affect a child's educational experience. A strong partnership between teachers and parents can add to the success of an individual with ADD and ADHD. The last category of special need is the sensory impaired special needs. People with sensory disabilities or special needs can be aided in learning and communication through technology and social advancement, like auxiliary aids and adaptive equipment. This table shows the special needs and considerations of the different contexts. In workplace, employees with medical needs may require breaks to administer medication. Also, employees with other needs might need adaptive seating, sign language interpretation, or specialized equipment that allows them to perform their duties. In classroom, students with learning disabilities can receive accommodations such as extra time for testing, assistance with note taking, and additional reading or math instruction. In playground, the addition of ramps, accessible swings, and ground level play equipment accommodates children with physical disabilities. Sport team, player with special needs may require specialized equipment, a visual schedule, extra instruction in rules, or an assistant to participate in organized sport. In the public transportation and public places, public transportation can include wheelchair access, elevators, braille signage, audible and visual signals at crosswalks, and other aids to those with sensory and physical needs. To wrap things up, this discussion it's all about understanding these needs and knowing that you can get through it or help someone through it by being well informed and surrounded by a support system of love.
What is inclusive education? Inclusive education means that all students attend and are welcomed by their neighborhood schools in age-appropriate, regular classes and are supported to learn, contribute, participate in all aspects of life of school. Inclusive is simply something doesn't leave any person. In other words, something is inclusive if it doesn't exclude a person, a part, or a group of people. Inclusive, or from the word inclusion, it means that all children are welcome in a shared learning environment. Inclusive education is carried in a common learning environment that's in an educational setting where students from different backgrounds and with different abilities learn together in an inclusive environment. In this, students learn on the students with disabilities and without disabilities learn and participate together. It is to ensure to access the quality of education for all students by effectively meeting their diverse needs in a way that is responsive, accepting, respectful, and supportive. There are examples of groups or organizations that prioritize special needs for children. One is UNICEF. UNICEF stands for United Nations International Children's Emergency Fund. UNICEF works to promote and protect the rights of every Filipino child with particular focus on those who are most vulnerable and disadvantaged. The second one is the UNESCO. UNESCO stands for United Nations Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organization. Has been working to strengthen states' strategies for inclusive educational planning and management through actions to raise awareness. The third one is the FCSN. FCSN stands for Federation for Children with Special Needs. In this organization, it values children as the hope for the evolving improvement of humankind and places great value of the family as a caring protector of children's vulnerability. What are the reasons why we deal with people with special needs? People with disabilities need health care and health programs for the same reasons anyone else does to stay well and a part for the community. And also, we tend to believe that They have an equal importance and capabilities with normal people despite their disabilities.
We are aware that schools already allow children with special needs to enroll. What is the reason behind that? Let us discuss the legal basis of special education here in the Philippines and to find out the reason behind this situation. I am Maria Eliza Cassandra Malato and I will be discussing the laws of special education. Before moving on to the different legal basis of the special education here in the Philippines, let us first define what is inside this law, particularly the Republic Act, which I know you are familiar with. According to the definition, Republic Act is a piece of legislation used to create policy in order to carry out the principles of the Constitution. It is crafted and passed by the Congress of the Philippines. It can only be repealed by a similar act of Congress. And from this definition, we can say that every law that is passed is also found with importance. And that is the reason why these laws, particularly in the field of special education, was passed because it was also given importance and is given attention by our government. Now let us proceed to the different legal basis of our special education here in the Philippines. This is the very first Republic Act that I will introduce to you. This is the recent one, which is passed last 2022 under the presidency of Mr. Roa Duterte. It is the Republic Act 11650, an act instituting a policy of inclusion and services for learners with disabilities in support of inclusive education, establishing inclusive learning resource centers of learners with disabilities in all schools, districts, municipalities, and cities, providing for standards, appropriating funds, therefore, and for other purposes. And from this act, we can say that our children with special needs were given enough privilege by our government. They were given an attention and that they are equally important as other students or other children that we have here in the community to be given opportunity like this. And to follow, we also have here the Republic Act number 3562, and this was enacted to declare permanent government commitment to the training of SPED. This was passed last 1962, and this focuses more to the promotion of the education of the blind. We have here the Republic Act 5250, which was passed last 1966. This is about provided a 10-year teacher education program in special education for the teaching of the gifted, mentally retarded, and those with behavior problems. Only 2 schools offer undergraduate in SPED, which is the UP COED and the CEU. We also have here the Republic Act number 7277, otherwise known as the Magna Carta for Disabled Person. This act actually aims for equality between persons with disability and also to other people according to its right. So this act aims to have the same right, the same privileges, despite having these special needs. We also have here the Republic Act number 9288, and this was all about, or otherwise known as the Newborn Screening Act of 2004. This illustrates a procedure to detect a genetic and metabolic disorder in newborns that may lead to mental retardation and even death if left untreated. So this law is actually one of the necessary to do as a newborn care routine mandated by the law here in the Philippines. We also have the Republic Act number 7610, which is about an act that provides special protection to our children in the community here in the Philippines from all forms of abuse, neglect, cruelty, exploitation, and discrimination, also other conditions that we can encounter here in the Philippines regarding our children. And the last to be tackled for this topic is the 1987 Philippine Constitution. So this preamble actually states the kind of state we have, which is the democratic and republican state. And of course, this talks about independence and democracy, which is our aim, and that includes the law and regime of truth, justice, freedom, love, equality, and peace, which we can relate to the special education that we are talking about. And from that, we have learned that special education aims that to have equality between the person with disability or person with special needs to our normal people, the same right, the same privileges, and the same opportunities. And from there, with the preamble, we can also notice the prime duty of the government is to serve and protect the people. And from the citation of the Republic Act a while ago, we can say that our government has given importance to this kind of issue in our community, which is the people with special needs. They have given attention to it, they have seen or given importance to these people, and thus they have created or they have approved this kind of republic acts for our person with disability or with special need. And from that, since they are given importance, we can say that they have hope to give success also to our nation.
We will now proceed to the historical development of special inclusive education in the Philippines. Historically, persons with disabilities were forced into isolation and exclusion as they were typically mistaken as freaks, cursed, and possessed by evil powers. Throughout the world civil rights era, advocates worldwide fought for the access and inclusive rights of persons with disabilities. So in the Philippines, the interest to educate Filipino children with disabilities was expressed in 1902 through Mr. Fred Atkinson, the General Superintendent of Education. This period was the American colonization in the country. So in 1907, special education was formally started in the country by establishing the Insular School for the Deaf and Blind in Manila. So Mr. David Burrows, Director of Public Education, worked for its establishment with the help of Mr. Delight Rice, an American educator who was the first administrator and teacher of the special school. In later years, Mrs. Maria Villa Francisco, the first Filipino principal, took over the special school. So at present, this school was divided into two. First is Philippine School for the Deaf at Harrison, Pasay City, and Philippine National School for the Blind, adjacent to that in Polo Road. So as we have mentioned earlier, these four individuals was the influencers or the pioneers recognized who shaped the special inclusive education in the Philippines. So first is Mr. Fred Atkinson, second is David Burrows, third is Miss Delight Rice, and lastly Miss Maria Villa Francisco. So in 1926, so we will now proceed. So the Philippine Association for the Deaf or PAD was established. So in 1927, the first school of mental retardation was established also in Mandaluyong. In 1933, the first advocacy groups to fight for quality special education. And in 1950, PAD opened a school for children with hearing impairment. And in 1954, the first week of August was declared as Sight Saving Week. In 1956, special classes for the deaf in regular classes were implemented. So in 1960, some private college and universities started to offer special education courses on graduate school curriculum. So in 1963, with the approval of RA number 3562, the training of DEC teachers, scholars for blind children started at the PNU. So in 1965, marked the start of the training program for school administrators under the supervision of special education classes held at UP. So in the 1979, the Bureau of Elementary Education and Special Education Unit conducted a 2-year national survey for the exceptional children in the school. In 1990, the Philippine Institute for the Deaf was established. So in the 1995, summer training for the hearing impaired teachers. So in 1997, inclusive education was officially adopted by DepEd in the Philippines. In 2000, recognized special centers in the Philippines were recognized. And in 2007, identified 10 groups of children with special needs. In 2009, the department or the DepEd issued Braille textbook to help in especially for the visually impaired children. So you can see in the image below. And in 2013, DepEd organized a national conference for SPED teachers to sharpen their skills. In 2019, Cayetano Senate Bill 69, the Inclusive Education for Children and Youth with Special Needs Act. In 2020, the DepEd confirmed that special education was given funds in 2020 national budget. And lastly, 2022 Republic Act 11650, inked by Duterte on March 11, provides that no learner shall be denied admission based on their disability. The new law provides that all schools, whether public or private, shall ensure equitable access to quality education to every learner with disabilities. Those are all the important events in the history of special inclusive education in the Philippines. Before I give this opportunity to the next presenter of our group, I would like to leave with this quote. History cannot give us a program for this future, but it can give us a fuller understanding of ourselves and of our common humanity so that we can better face the future. I would like to say that history of special education in the Philippines have taken a long way in order to become a fully implemented and recognized in the country. However, according to Professor Starr, there are lapses, but these lapses help contributors, teachers, and school leaders improve or evaluate more intervention program in order that SPED can really cater to learners with special needs at the same time. The goals and aims of special education program, which is independent with child with special, can be achieved. So truly, the present and the future waves of transformation brought by different events of the history replaces us the advantage and bringing special education of yesterday and tomorrow.
Mr. Liames, we will now proceed to the activity and analysis to test our knowledge gained from this video presentation. We were given an activity in which we are going to describe what we have observed from the given illustration, and followed with analysis, which contains 3 questions and will be answered based on what we have observed on the given illustration. Based on the illustration, we can identify progress from the first illustration up to last. In the first illustration, there are these children in line, but some of them are identified to have disabilities. One of them is in wheelchair and the other is in crutches. With that, we can say that they were included children fit for the special education. Students which fits the special education are those with special needs. A child with special need is a youth who has been determined to require special attention and specific necessities that other children do not, and can range from people with autism, cerebral palsy, Down syndrome, blindness, deafness, and ADHD. They can also include cleft lips and missing limbs. The second illustration gives us the idea of children with special need were taken care of. It is a representation of accepting these children even with disabilities and allowing them to feel comfort, guidance, and assistance from people or elderly from the history that is in relation to special education. The reason of why special education was created is because there are people who consider these children with special needs as equally important with normal children. The third illustration speaks with education, and thus we can say that these children were given opportunity to study like ordinary children in the society. This privilege becomes possible because of the special education promoted and implemented for the benefit of our fellow citizen with special needs. The last illustration given portrays successful professional, and we can notice some of them of different look, which assumingly are those with special needs. However, like other people in the illustration, they were also in uniform and recognized as professionals. In here, we can conclude that there is a progress happening from illustration A, B, C, and D. After the activity, we are going to proceed to analysis, which we are going to answer 3 questions. The first question is, was there a progress seen from the first illustration up to the fourth? And the second question is, if your answer is yes, how could you say that there's a progress? We are going to answer the first and second question at the same time. So yes, there is a progress in the illustration because the result is presented from the illustration that shows children, including those with special needs, having guardians to take care of them, given privilege to have education like everybody, and thus, because of the opportunity given, they were able to become professionals just like other normal people that succeeds in life. Despite having special needs, giving them an equal right with normal children when they were young results to a good impact to their lives. And the last question is, do you think an individual could reach his full potential by himself? Why and why not? My answer is no, at least for me, no. because we are all living with the system in the society where we are surrounded with different factors to affect us, and we need the help of others for us to reach our potential. Given as the example, education. We cannot proceed to study without education, and thus, to be able to proceed with our goal, we need the help of our educators, teachers, or professors to teach us and guide us in learning and attaining our goals. Relating it to the concept of inclusive and special education, SPED students were helpless if not given chance and got less attention in our society. The thing that made special education possible is because of those people who look after the future of children with special needs and see them to have equal importance and potential with other normal kids. From there, we can say that for a person reaches for full potential, he needs someone or some opportunities to help and support him to reach a particular goal. In conclusion, the importance of special education cannot be stated enough. Kids with special needs can grow up to be productive, happy, and fully functioning member of society, or they can slip, fall behind, and slip through the cracks. That is why inclusion is essential for forming lasting relationships, experiences, and development of their cognitive and social skills. The No Child Left Behind Act of 2001 ensures that no child is allowed to fail. States are individually held accountable for the student scores and proficiency. Students with learning disabilities all do not learn the same. Having standard-based individual education plan will guide the students and offer supports and services they need to employ the Common Core Standards Initiative successfully. Having knowledgeable, well-trained, and accredited teachers is imperial for the success of the students. Cross-collaboration among principals, staffs, parents, and the community can help students with special needs to meet the and exceed the Common Core Standard Initiative and help inclusion spread past general classroom and into all classrooms and schools. Thank you for listening. This is the end of our video presentation, and I hope you learned something from it. And hopefully, we meet again next time. Thank you and goodbye.